The movie begins inside a cold, deserted cave. It appears empty, but this place holds the key to everything that will unfold later. We then meet Abby, a geologist whose life revolves around her sister Beth. After their mother's passing, Abby and Beth shared a quiet, happy life. Their days were filled with laughter, shared meals, and the small joys that made everything feel steady. But that peace began to fade when Beth fell ill. The diagnosis was cancer, and it came like a slow-moving storm that wouldn't pass. Each day, her condition worsened, yet Abby refused to lose hope. She believed there had to be a way to save her. When Abby learned about a geological expedition searching for uranium deep within a remote mountain range, she saw a chance. The job was risky, but it paid well. Money she needed for Beth's treatment. Her father strongly disapproved, warning her not to make any rash decisions. Still, Abby promised to wait until she returned, before making any choices about her sister's care. With heavy hope and trembling faith, she left home. Days turned into weeks. The team searched endlessly but found nothing. Funds were drying up, morale was low, and the crew began to argue about whether to continue. When they reached a stretch of forest said to be forbidden, territory rumored to belong to the Russians, the others refused to go farther. Abby, desperate and stubborn, decided to go alone. She borrowed a gun from one of her colleagues for protection and entered the woods. Deep in the forest, she discovered a strange black rock. It pulsed faintly, unlike anything she had ever seen. She pocketed it, thinking it could be valuable, maybe even something that could help Beth. Back at the base, she began to study it, convinced she had found something extraordinary. But before she could learn more, her phone rang. It was news from home. Beth's condition had worsened. Panic took over. Abby packed her things and arranged for an emergency helicopter ride out of the mountains. 2 pilots accompanied her. The weather was rough, and as they flew over restricted airspace, something massive, like a wave or a dark shape in the sky, struck the helicopter. They crashed into the mountains below. Abby woke to silence. One pilot was dead, the other barely breathing. She was bruised, cold, and terrified. Through the long night, she kept a fire burning, hoping someone would see the smoke. By morning, both pilots were dead. Fear clawed at her chest, but she knew she couldn't stay there. She had to make it home to Beth. She gathered what she could: a map, a compass, the pilot's gun, a few medical supplies, and the strange black rock. Before she could leave, a faint static broke through a walkie-talkie lying near the wreckage. She almost ignored it, but curiosity made her pick it up. The battery was nearly dead, so she rigged it to the helicopter battery to recharge it. When she finally tried to call for help, the first 3 channels gave no response. But on the 4th, a man's voice answered. He said his name was John. John told her his plane had also crashed nearby. He said he was injured, his legs paralyzed, and he couldn't move. He claimed to have a radio powerful enough to call for rescue, if only someone could reach it. Abby felt a rush of hope. If she could find him, maybe they could both be saved. John warned her not to come north toward him, saying she should instead go south toward the main road. But Abby couldn't leave someone to die alone. She decided to help. Using the walkie-talkie, John guided her through the forest. His voice was calm, familiar, almost comforting. Along the way, Abby told him about her sister and why she was in the mountains in the first place. John listened quietly, then surprised her by mentioning uranium, before she had even told him what she was searching for. The comment unsettled her, but she brushed it off as coincidence. The journey was brutal. Storms rolled through, temperatures dropped, and the terrain grew steeper. At one point, she lost her knife while trying to climb a mountain. Frustrated and exhausted, she refused to turn back. She had noticed earlier that the black rock could change shape, so she used it to forge makeshift tools to climb up the cliffs. When she reached the summit, she saw something in the distance through her scope: a Russian military base. She called out to John, but his voice suddenly turned tense. He begged her to stay away, warning that the soldiers would shoot her on sight. Abby hesitated but pressed on, desperate for any sign of help. Her foot slipped on the ice and she fell hard, breaking her leg. Gritting her teeth, she tied a strip of cloth tightly around it to slow the bleeding and dragged herself onward. She found an abandoned village near the base, where she took shelter for the night. The food she found was spoiled, but exhaustion won over hunger. She fell asleep. In the morning, a Russian soldier discovered her. Startled and haunted by John's warnings, Abby panicked and shot him in the leg. When she searched his bag, her stomach dropped. He carried a piece of the same black rock. The soldier, writhing in pain, tried to call for help on his radio. Abby froze. John's voice, calm and cold. The truth hit her like a blow. The man she had trusted wasn't a stranded pilot. He was something else entirely. When she screamed at him through the walkie-talkie, demanding to know who he was, there was only silence. Later, she and the wounded soldier tried to cross a frozen lake to reach the military base. The ice cracked beneath them. The soldier plunged into the freezing water and disappeared. Abby barely made it across, trembling and half-conscious. In fury and fear, she threw the black rock into the snow, ripped the battery from the walkie-talkie, and hurled it away. But John's voice still came through, soft and mocking, praising her, calling her his favorite. She stumbled through the snow until she found a cave. Inside, she collapsed beside a pool of warm, steaming water. A skeleton lay nearby, its name tag reading John. Around it, the same glowing rocks pulsed softly in the darkness. Then John's voice returned. He told her the truth. Decades ago, he too had been a survivor. A soldier who had discovered the rocks. They weren't minerals, he said, but living entities that needed hosts. When he found them, they offered him a choice. To die, or to let them live through him. He had chosen to merge with them. Now they were offering Abby the same choice. She refused. "I just want to go home," she whispered. Energy surged through the cave, and suddenly she found herself standing in her home. The air was warm. Beth was alive. Her father smiled. Everything was perfect. For a brief, shining moment, she believed she had made it. Then she noticed the wounds on her leg. The same ones from the crash. The illusion shattered. "This isn't real," she said quietly. John's voice echoed, faint, but close. "You'd rather go back into the cold?" "Yes," she whispered. "I would." With that, the illusion broke apart like glass. Abby didn't see John physically, only felt him, their minds locked in one final struggle. She told him that life only has meaning because it ends. "Death," she said, "isn't the enemy. It's part of what makes living real." Refusing to be his next occupant, she broke free from his control. Moments later, a rescue helicopter appeared overhead. Abby woke up in her colleague's apartment a few days later. She had been unconscious in the hospital for 2 days before being brought there to rest. Abby insisted on going home immediately. She boarded a plane, her body still weak. Her father met her at the airport, silent and heavy-eyed. The drive home was quiet. Abby finally returned home. She was too late to save Beth, but right on time to say goodbye. Her father sat by the bed, silent, watching his 2 daughters lying side by side as Beth took her final breath. Abby closed her eyes, and for the first time she wasn't afraid. The journey had taught her that death isn't just the end. It's a part of life. If this story left you thinking and unsettled, consider smashing the subscribe button for more gripping movie recaps.